What's going on, beautiful people? This tank here has been empty for too long and I've got a really nice idea of some fish on the fish wall to build that I want to go in it. Did that make sense? Hopefully. I'm not doing it again. So in this tank here, we have got a load of dwarf Danios. They're so fast, they're so moving. So moving? Is it? I can't speak today. Anyway, look, yeah, loads of action. You always get that with any kind of Danio. That's why they're such a popular fish, I think, because it's just always action. And these are the dwarf variety. I think they're like approaching adult size already. There's my finger for reference. So yeah, you can see they're little tiddlers, awesome little fish. And here is the tank that we're going to be using to create the scape. It's 60 centimeters across, which is 2 foot, roughly 1 foot high and 1 foot deep. The filter is the Superfish EcoFlow 120, and I've upgraded the inlet and outlet to the Superfish stainless steel version as well, which looks really smart. The first thing I need to do though is get this tank cleaned up because it looks gross. Oh, there we go. That job is done. The most boring job in the world, the most hated job that I have to do in this studio as well. But we don't always do the things we want to do, we do the things we need to do, and that needed doing. If you're wondering how I got it so clean relatively quickly, it was this bad boy here, razor scraper. Doesn't scratch the glass or anything like that. You've got like reusable blades that you can slot in, and you can buy them in big packs as well, so you get loads of them. I'll leave a link for it if you're interested. I use this, probably the most used tool in the whole studio. And now it is substrate time. So probably the most important part of any aquascape that you're putting plants in is to get the substrate sorted. We need enough nutrients in there for the root systems to just go everywhere, have a constant uptake. I mean, plants predominantly feed from their roots. They will take stuff from the water column as well, like stem plants and any plants that you stick onto wood or rocks, epiphyte plants, but they still send out roots, and those roots are looking for soil. I mean, it doesn't matter, you don't have to get epiphytes in the soil, but if we create a really rich environment on the bottom, it's just going to be so much better for the overall health of the whole tank. So today's video is proudly sponsored by API and Aquarian. Now throughout the video, I'm going to be using all of these products you can see here, and I use them in basically every single setup that I do as well. You guys have seen the drill: root tabs in the substrate, leaf zone for fertilizer, master test kit for testing the water, quick start when the fish go in, and Aqua Essential for purifying your water. At the end, we'll stick in some food from Aquarian as well, which will be perfect for the fish that I've got in mind for this tank. Right, now back to the video. Well, I'm sure you guys all know the drill by now. So, we have got NutriBase to start with. It's really, really good for starting aquariums, get some settled in really quickly. If you can't get NutriBase in your country, don't worry. It will still work without it. It just takes a little bit longer for everything to bed in. It's got dormant beneficial bacteria and things like that in it, you see, which just really help the start process. On top of that, or mixed in with that, we've got aquatic pond soil. If you can't find aquatic pond soil, you can use normal pond soil, but I'm not sure how much you should use because every brand's different, so it's a little bit of trial and error there. And then we've got the API root tabs. I've used these in basically every single setup. It's never done me wrong. Been using them for like 5 years now, so brilliant. More on those in a minute. I like to crush them up, you see, and just sprinkle all the powder. You can use them as well to place into an already filled up aquarium, you know, like a couple of months down the line or something. If you need more nutrients, just take a tablet, put it straight into the substrate. And then everything is going to be capped with this pool filter sand. Already clean, perfect, no messing about. So first job is to get the NutriBase in the areas where we're going to have the plants. Now for this setup, it's going to be the whole way along the back area. I've got like a cool vision in my mind of how this is going to look. It should be pretty nice. I'm not going to need a whole bag for this. I'm probably going to use half the bag. Yeah, there we go. And then into that, I'm going to add a load of the pond soil. They call it aquatic compost. I think it's had a load of the organics sort of floated off. Not all of them though, which is a good thing because we want any organics to break down underneath the substrate, because that means it will generate its own CO2 in the tank. And then we want to take our root tabs, which, by the way, contain nitrogen, phosphate, potash, and iron. I like to put them into a pestle and mortar, crush it all up, and then I've got a powder. And for this size tank, I'm only going to need 5 of them, which is good, because then I've got 5 left for another one. And then now we cap the whole thing with the pool filter sand. So start in the foreground with your sand. I don't want a thick, thick layer in the foreground. That's why I put no nutrients there, because that's going to be like the sort of riverbed. And then we can build it up as it goes closer to the soil. There we go. And I've created like a ledge there, and I'll just keep that going so I get the same thickness everywhere. The reason I've made the back a lot higher than the foreground is because I want that to be the area where the sort of bank is, and there's going to be so many plants in there, so I want them up high, and then this area here should feel like the river sort of running along. That's the theory anyway. So next up, I want to create like a retaining wall, just past middle of the tank, and then I can even put more substrate behind that. And for that, Siriu stone works really well. I've got a nice selection down here, which means I'll be able to select the right sizes, and there's enough to create some height as well. Don't want it too high though. It's supposed to look like a sort of shallow river edge. There we go. I've got a good selection here, and you know, as you can see, size-wise, we've got a complete variation, which I've found makes it a lot easier to build these kind of retaining walls rather than like 4 or 5 big pieces on their own. If you've got lots of smaller ones, you can stack them and make the shapes look a little bit more natural, and it gives you just more options. So I always tend to start with the biggest piece. Now that's got strata lines that run horizontally, and if you put it flat, it looks a bit weird. But if you do that and place it in at an angle, not quite in the center, just off center, just because we don't want the highest point right in the middle. We can use another rock to sort of prop it up. Like that. In fact, that's too straight. I kind of want it angled a bit. There we go. And then another rock on this side, again, just to help sort of stabilize it. Ooh. Once we get more in and more sand behind it, it'll all stay up fine. Just pushing the sand right behind it, sort of lock it in. I made like a nice little sort of darkened cave area section there, which just looks really cool. Looks kind of natural. I like that. And the good thing about Siriu stone is it just looks so cool and natural. And you can sort of just chuck it in any old way, and it always tends to look good. Okay, I'm just going to crack on now and just keep putting bits in. Hopefully it turns out all right. So now we've created that retaining wall, I've put a little bit more sand in there, but we can come even higher in some of the sections. And what that means is that when we plant, the plants are already up tall, and it should give the effect that I'm after. And a bit more on this side. And obviously the nutrients are quite low, so I will push in about that far with the plants, which is obviously what you need to do anyway to make sure they get anchored. Let's just straighten out that back a little bit. I'm liking this so far. Everything's going as I pictured it, which sometimes isn't the case. So now I want to add in a load of detail in the foreground area, like all up against the rocks, blending it all in a little bit more, because that does look nice, but I'm trying to go for a sort of natural river vibe. And for that, I've got a brand new box. I don't know why it's a box. It's actually in a bag inside, but I guess that's for storage and shipping. Rio Shingu. I think it's pronounced Shingu. But yeah, this stuff is awesome. I've got to give it a wash though, because it's quite grubby. Now the good thing about this gravel is that, unlike sand, which can take forever to clear, it's pretty quick. Look, it's nearly done already, and I've only just turned the tap on. Now, I know what I'm doing here looks pretty weird, but I find that when you dry the gravel, it just falls better, and just it's not all stuck together, and it falls how you want it to. There we go, nice and dry. I mean, drying it all is probably a bit of an overkill, but as you'll see now, look, when I release it, it just falls. Otherwise, that would all be in one clump. And look at how good this stuff is. It's probably the best, I think. I think it looks the most natural. But then you don't want to do it on every scape, of course, because it can get a little bit samey otherwise. And as always, I'm just rubbing it up against the rock and then letting it fall wherever it wants to go. Find that gives it the most sort of natural look. And you can also use it to block any gaps the sand might get pushed through, like at the edges and that. It's pretty good though, to be honest. Close the gaps quite well here. You can use little bits of filter sponge to fill in gaps if you need to, but luckily I had enough pieces and smaller pieces to be able to plug all the gaps. Look at that, makes it come alive, right? Very annoying that there's this scratch here all the way across, but you know, but yeah, loving that. Now you could stop there and just keep it as rock, but I think I want to do some like detailed twigs, just sort of like root systems coming down into foreground, just for a little bit more interest. I think it'll tie it all in really well. I don't want any wood on the top though. And the best kind of wood to use for that is like spider wood, like this stuff here, the thinner stuff. It just looks so much better. This one's never been in water, so it's got that kind of weird yellowy tone to it. So I'll use stuff that I've used before in other scapes, you know, like something like this, but broken up. Could work really well. Got a bit of a hardened glue on here, which will look really horrible underwater. Just cut it off. There we go. So if we start off with these pieces as our thickest parts, quite like that one in here somewhere like that. Another long one reaching over. You want to sort of try and follow the wood. There we go. Look how perfect that one fits in. Look at that. And maybe another one like in any gaps, just because it looks like it's come through the cracks like a root would. Sometimes it's also good to make it land on the outcrops. You know, like I've done that without even thinking, but yeah, it just sort of makes it tie in a bit better, I think. And then we can take some really spindly pieces and go fully horizontal with them. And that should give us a proper, like, rooty underwater look. Fish will love swimming in amongst it all as well. So yeah, it'll work both ways. Look, I've just hooked it over there, so it just looks like it's actually got caught. Not sure about that piece yet. I'll see how it goes. But these pieces all tie in nice. Yeah, I don't like that one, it's too straight. That looks awesome. I'm really pleased actually, because you know, sometimes you have an idea in your head and then you go to do it and you're like, oh, I don't have that and I don't have that. I did all of this stuff beforehand, like the Ryoshingu and the sand, because I knew I wanted to do this scape. But sometimes bits of wood and rock just don't work in your favour, but this time definitely has. Love that. Right, all this stuff will float up, so it needs little blobs of super glue gel, and that would just lock it all in place. They're only light pieces, so it's, yeah, minimal gluing, and you shouldn't see any of the glue either. So as always, I've got the super glue gel form, and I've got the reacting agent as well, which you spray on and makes it go hard straight away. Those two things combined mean that we can like really crack on with it. Because it sets it instantly, you can just move on to the next piece, and then plant and fill it up. So that's everything stuck down. We can now do some planting, and I really want to try and stick to one plant type for that whole background area. Like the simplicity of it combined with that complex sort of bottom part, I think might go really well together, stand out nicely for the fish. Otherwise it might look a bit like confusing if there's just like a jungle on the top of like completely random textures everywhere, and then complex on the bottom. Actually, that might look good as well. We'll see, all right? I'm gonna try it first with just one plant, see how that looks. If it needs some more little textures and details, I can always add that in, can't I? And the plant of choice is going to be a load of the Dwarf sage. You can see at the back of my rainbow fish aquarium, it needs harvesting again. Last time I did that, I pulled it all out and just threw it away because it was so much. But this time, I can actually make use of them, and I think it will work really well. I'm going for that sort of Vallisneria reedy vibe, but Vallisneria is way bigger. Like in this tank that I've currently got my neons and red devil angelfish in, the Vallisneria is growing right from the base all the way up and looping over, and this tank is taller than the other one. So, and it's not really nice just cutting off the ends. It just looks weird, and it sort of damages the plant as well. So yeah, I think the Dwarf Sag is the right move here. Hello. Well, I've messed up the tank loads, it's gone all misted, but the filters will clear that very quickly. I've got absolutely tons down here. I'm not sure I'll need this much, but it needed pruning out, so yeah, it's better to have too much, isn't it? Right, I suppose there's nothing left to do. Get planting. I'm gonna start on the right-hand side and then just bring it all the way across. Well, I did use all of it and I went back and got a bit more. If you're gonna do something, then do it, you know, go for it. Right, I can fill this up now. I think it's gonna look great. I mean, it looks a bit naff at the minute, but give it a second. Well, that looks fantastic. Initially I was thinking, oh, I don't like these little gappy bits here and here. And then I realized, well, if I fill those in, it's gonna look less natural. But I love the simplicity of it. Does it need some hydrocotyl Japan in the bottom areas though? Or should it just be like that? I don't know, I'm tempted. So in case any of you are wondering, I filled that up with my hose and like an old filter inlet. And that hose runs into this water butt here. And when I fill the water butt up, I actually add Aqua Essential to it. Now, Aqua Essential, I've been using this for a long time now. It works so good. It detoxifies ammonia, nitrite, and nitrate if you use it at the higher concentration, which is all written on the back. Like if you've got some problem in your tank and for whatever reason you can't change the water, you can just put it in and it just neutralizes, that's the one, neutralizes everything. But I don't really need to do that. I mean, I keep tabs on all my tanks with the test kit as well, and everything's always good. Planted tanks, they're pretty good, you know, in terms of just keeping nitrates and ammonia down, because obviously they use that as food to grow. But in the concentrations I need, which is such a tiny amount, like this bottle lasts so good. All of API's products are higher concentration, so they last a lot longer than some of the other brands. But I add it to the tap water because it removes chlorine, chloramines, and heavy metals. And that's the main thing that I want it for. So then by the time the next day comes after I fill the water butt up, it's the same temperature as the room as well, which means I can just go around and do water changes really quickly. I don't have to get the temperature right because it's already matching because it's ambient air temperature. So yeah, API's Aqua Essential, great stuff, get it. Just keep it in your repertoire. So the water's misted up a little bit, and that's because I accidentally pulled out a couple of the Dwarf Sag sort of sections. I don't know, what the plants, the root area. And then obviously put them back down again. It stirred up a little bit. So let's get the filter started. We can stick some AccuClear in and that'll sort it right out. Still a load of air trapped in. I'll shake that out in a second. Oh, it's coming up now. And as suspected, a load of crud that was still in the filter is now floating around the tank. So yeah, AccuClear in next. This is a brilliant product. Basically what we're seeing now is fine dust particles all floating around in the water column. What this does is it makes them clump together through magic, I guess. They clump together and are then heavy enough to be picked up by the filter and the filter floss inside. So if you haven't got a fine filter floss in any of your filters, it won't catch it. But if you have, and you need to put some in, then this just sorts it out so fast. It'll go like gin in about 30 minutes, I reckon, in this tank. There we go, we're looking crystal clear. But to be honest, there's a couple of changes I want to make. I'm not completely happy with the flow of the filter. It's not really designed for a tank this size at all. It's designed for like a shallow or something like that. But it does have a lot of mechanical filtration, so I'm going to keep it in for that. But I think I'm going to add a little surface skimmer next to it. Eventually, when all of the Dwarf Sag grows, you won't even see that anyway. But that'll add not only surface skimming, it'll also add flow in this area. Just get those reeds moving a little bit more, and it'll create some surface agitation as well, because I do want a bit of that sort of rivery shimmering look in the water. So yeah, let's get that fitted and see how it looks. I might need to change the light to get the shimmering effect, because the Twin Star sort of covers an even light everywhere, whereas spotlights work so well for shimmering. As you can see here on the Mabuna tank, It's just constantly glistening everywhere, and I just love that look. So I want to try and recreate that. And I've got the Superfish Skimmer 300. It flows forwards, but what I like to do is just heat up this exit point like real gently and just sort of bend it upwards, and it just flicks it all to the surface. Works really well. There we go, that is working well. We've got that surface shimmer going on. Like I say, when the light's changed, it'll look good. I just want to hide it a little bit more. I'm going to get another clump of the Dwarf sage, put it right in that corner. That should come up and just take a little bit of that sort of in-your-faciness away from it. So we've got a couple of options for the lighting to switch out. The first one being the Fluval Plant Nano. I mean, I've had this on a 60cm tank like this one before, and it does get good coverage. And the other one is swapping it out for this Lumini sort of budget spotlight, and it works really well. It's not lighting this one up massively, but then that's because there's so many floating plants. I'll try the Fluval Plant first. I think that might be good enough. If not, this might give us more of the shimmer. So it's obviously a lot less bright, but you know, it's gonna be. I think I can actually bring it down a little bit lower than that. There it is a little bit lower. It has got a really cool, moody vibe, probably more realistic of what you'd actually see in a little shallow stream with all of the forest above creating a canopy. It's a little bit on the purple side though, so I think I'm just gonna try and adjust that. You can download the app and then connect to it Bluetooth as well, which is quite cool. This is not a sponsored video at all, but to be fair, these little Fluval Plant LEDs are quite good. Right, I fiddled with the settings and that is the maximum power. In fact, it's less than you're seeing because the camera tries to adjust. So let me show you what I'm seeing light-wise. Yeah, I'd say that there is about how it is, which to be honest for me, I don't know. I think that's a little bit too dark. It's probably realistic, but in terms of like a spectacle, it isn't. Let me try the other light, the Lumini one. Here we go, look, the Lumini light. Yeah, I think that's the one. It's got just a normal sort of 6,500 Kelvin, so like a sunlight. Looks nice, does the job. Again, this area is a little bit darker because it's being pushed forward by the stuff behind it, but that's fine. Like, you're gonna get little darker areas in a stream, aren't you? But yeah, I'm happy with that now. While saying that, I'm happy with like the lighting and the shimmer and everything like that. But I do think we need another touch of just a little bit of Hydrocoat Japan, just creeping over some of these edges just for a different texture. Like I said before, I can put it in, see if it works. If it doesn't, take it out, but I think it will. And over here in these tanks is where I can harvest it from. So look, I've got so much here, it's completely overtaking that area. So taking off a few clumps here and there is actually gonna help prune this tank and get it looking a little bit better, because there's lots of bulbitis, no, it's not bulbitis, sorry, it's Bucephalandra underneath there, which is absolutely fine. It won't die because it doesn't need a huge amount of light anyway, but we can just clear it out a little bit. And before I did that, I thought I'd just try one more light. So this is the newer version of the Lumini you saw, the single one. It's two of them. It's got multiple colored LEDs. I don't know if you can see that in the reflection, but it kind of, it's weird. It does like a bluey one over here and more of a red over here, because when you look at the LEDs in there, they've all got the same ones on. It's quite nice. It's an option. I actually quite like that it's got these different sort of colours. It looks pretty rainbowy and cool. But I still want to try one more option. I mean, there's me saying how nice these lights are, and they're, you know, lighting up this deep tank looking really good. So I'm just going to try one of those on there. If it's good, I can just order another one to replace on here and everything will be sorted. There we go. This is the Lumini Pixie. It gives a really, really good shimmer because the higher the light sort of source, the more it tends to do that. But now I'm thinking, do I go back to the original one? It did light it up really well. It will give the best growth, but it's not wasted time anyway, because you guys have got to see all the differences and the different lights. I can link every one of them if you want, and then whichever one you can pick. Oh, saying that, I can't link the Twin Star one, but you can search for that. Okay, there we go. Back at square one. That is the best looking one. And I think the reason it is the light is reflecting on the wall in the background and the misting of the background glass. So you do get that nice uplighting at the back. which I think is probably why it looks the best in my opinion. Yeah, we lose the shimmer, but I'm definitely going to need to put some floating plants in though, because it's probably going to cause a little bit of algae as time goes by, all in the foreground area. Not if we add some little cories though, that might be quite nice. Now, given that we've just put the plants in, the root systems have been damaged, so it's going to be a little bit until they can find the nutrients and start feeding from there. In the meantime, we can put leaf zone in the tank because this is just pure water, brand new water at the moment. We need some sort of nutrients. The Hydroculture Japan as well will be thankful for it because that will feed from the water column. But the water is actually flowing everywhere. It moves through even the sand, like obviously not as quickly, but putting leaf zone in the water will get it in all of the plants. I use this on every single one of my tanks, and I always have done for like the past 5 years that I've been keeping fish. It's never let me down. It's the only one I use, only one I will use. Let's get it in. Now, as with any bottles you buy, regardless of the branding, always shake them up beforehand because sediments and stuff settle, so you want an even distribution. Now for this size tank, I need 10 mil, which is 1 capful. Now, how often do you want to do this? Well, I just do it by looking at the tank or when I do a water top up. So every time I do a top up of the water from evaporation, which is usually about once a week, to be honest, I do another 10 mil. I pretty much just go around and go in every single tank as well. And that's just gone off. Let's put it on. It's getting the end of the day. Everything's going off. There we go. Okay, I'm really pleased with that. I'm constantly resisting the temptation to plant more species of plants as well, but keep it simple and I think it will make the fish stand out and be even more interesting. Speaking of which, oh, hang on. Switch this back on with the app. There we go. The lights have only just gone off, but yeah, be a bit confusing for you guys. I've got an even better home for you. This is not adequate, is it? We've got the barbs in here as well. We've got the 4 barbs, which I haven't got a clue where they came from. And I feel like they should all just sort of go in together. If the barbs get bigger, I can catch them and put them into something else. But at the moment, they're all the same size. And I've got the 2 lampies as well. Yeah, I might as well put them all in. Although this one looks a little bit tiddly. One of them looks like it's got some sort of internal thingy. I'll leave the lampies off. Oh yeah, one thing we definitely need is some floating plants. So I'll put those in now. So now that the fish are in the tank, remember it's a brand new tank, effectively. I mean, the filter did have a little bit of gunk in it, but it's brand new. I'm sure there's no bacteria surviving in there. So what we need to do is seed the tank, and for that you use API's Quick Start. This stuff is like a cheat code. I've been using it for years and years. Enables you to put fish straight in the tank, straight away. I still would very much suggest testing your water in the morning. I use the, I use the API Master Test Kit. Now, I've been doing this for years and years, and I'm pretty good at it nowadays, I have to say. I don't get any losses. I set up the tank in a way that means there's not huge livestock and there's always tons of plants. But if you're not experienced, you might not know what to look for. So in the morning, test your water. This test kit has ammonia, nitrite, nitrate, and pH levels. So, you need to be able to know what is going on in the tank if there is a problem, if the fish are behaving a bit strangely. And sometimes when you can't even see that the fish are behaving strangely. So this is just a must for anyone who's new, I'd say. So yeah, get your quick start in. Hopefully if you set it up like I've suggested, it should be fine, but give it a test anyway. Oops. And there's nothing like putting a little bit of food in for some new fish to get them settled into their home. Look, these guys already know it. Yeah, so this is the Aquarian flake food. It's perfect for basically, I'd say 90% of all of my fish. And obviously it's a dried flake, but for this amount of fish, you just need barely anything, especially with being a new tank. And then I just sort of crumble it up on the surface like that. There we go. And I think it's pretty apparent how much they love that. Going crazy. They should settle in a lot more now and just be very comfortable around the tank. So I feel like this is a really good addition to the studio. I've kept it very simple compared to some of my other designs, but I think that suits the sort of simplistic nature of the fish as well. I don't know what that means. No idea what that means, I just said it. I guess they're quite a sort of understated looking fish is what I mean. So any complex sort of system, I don't think they stand out as well, but they look so good in here. And it's really great seeing them swimming around and enjoying the reeds that we've created as well. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this one. Don't forget to subscribe. We're trying to get to 1 million subs, and I'll see you on the next one.